Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Tech.Strong.Women, where we feature amazing women doing amazing things in tech. I am Jodi Ashley, executive producer here at Tech.Strong, and I'm joined by my co-host, Tracy Ragan, CEO at Deploy Hub, and active on tons of boards of the Linux Foundation that I can't keep track of, and a million other things she does. And we're excited to be here today with you. Before I introduce today's guests, I want to give you a quick update about what's going on here at Tech.Strong. We'll be at DevOps Asia Summit in Singapore on February 10th. You can also register now for Tech.Strong.Con 2023 on March 16th. And you can also catch up with the Tech.Strong team at RSA Conference 2023 in San Francisco, April 24th through the 27th. We will be there, and you can register for all of our events by going to techstrongevents.com, and be sure to check out everything going on techstrong.tv every day. Got a lot of great shows and content for you guys to watch over there. Hey, Tracy, what do you got? What do you got on your mind today?
Well, aren't you glad they don't have shows in December?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be a drag if one of the big shows decided to have it like the 15th of December through the 20th?
Seriously.
And I think that most shows should get shorter when they're in person, but that's not what I had on my mind today. I just thought about, wow, February is just around the corner and you're already thinking about traveling.
I know.
Hey, nuclear fusion. That blows my mind. That one really got me. I was like, that can't be right. For so long we were told it was impossible. I lived in Chicago, and they always talked about the lab out there with this massive centrifuge trying to create with these massive magnets this a little mini star, and then somebody does it in the lab in California with some lasers, which is really cool. The idea of light, creating light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now I know this is we're pre-recording, everybody. So we are right now, as we're recording, we are in the period of time where we're celebrating light. We have Hanukkah, Christmas, the winter solstice, which is the darkest day of the year, but you celebrate it because the next day we're going to have more light. And we find nuclear fusion that's going to create, use light to create. It's going to take energy to create it, but what we create creates more energy. It has such far-reaching, it's a major disruptor in so many ways. From the global geopolitical, world, if we didn't rely on oil, it would change so much in the world to make people's lives better in so many ways. So I read the article like 4 times, and I'm still blown away that somebody actually created a little mini star in a lab in California. So that's where my head's been this week, thinking about how that would change. They say it's going to take like 10 to 15 years for that to be real. That is not very far down the road. That is not long at all. We can do that. We can do that. We can wait, even if it took 20 years, we can do that. And maybe it just might save the planet. I'm a big environmentalist.
Yeah.
I drive electric cars. I do everything I can to minimize my dependency on oil. And I don't want anybody to send me hate mail to say I'm an oil hater. I love my pontoon boat. It requires oil. It uses gasoline. So I don't hate oil. I just know that we can't continue to rely on it. And it is about the kids, right? It's about the children. What is the world we're going to leave them? And I think nuclear fusion, that is a massive game changer for us. And let's hope it's real.
That's really cool. I should have known that would be your takeaway for the week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we should hear more about it. I feel like I got little glimpses of it, and I saw it on a ticker actually on CNN, and I had to go look on the CNN website and then read about it. I'm like, aren't we having a massive party about this?
I know there's so much going on in the world. It seems to blot out the cool stuff. Sometimes gets blotted out by all the garbage that's going on. So I think that's a great thing to cover. Thank you, Tracy. So I would like to introduce you all to our guest today, and I'm probably going to mess up your last name. Sofia, is it Palamarchuk?
That's perfect.
Nice. All right. I did it. Woohoo. She is the co-founder and CEO of Apptim. We are excited to have you with us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm very excited to be here, Jodi and Tracy. Nice to meet you as well. This is the first time we meet through Zoom. So yeah, as you said, I'm CEO and co-founder of Apptim. Apptim is a startup in the mobile performance space. So we have a product for developers that want to improve the user experience of their mobile apps. And this is my second company. I'm also a partner, and I actually started my career at Abstracta, which is a consulting business, which hired me as their first female performance engineer almost 10 years ago. And that's how I got to be now working in mobile performance and, being an entrepreneur, which is something that I'm passionate about, also creating new products.
So when you were at Abstracta, how did that form was that right after college, or
I was actually still in college. I'm originally from Uruguay, South America, a small but strong country between Argentina and Brazil. If you haven't been south, I would recommend you to make a stop in Uruguay. And the thing in Uruguay is that usually you're still studying at university and you already start working. So you do kind of both at the same time, which I know is not that common in the US. Usually you guys take the summer break and then you do some internships. For some reason, we started actually doing this many years ago when you work during the day and then you go to classes during the night. It's very intense, but the thing is that you learn a lot by doing, and also it shapes your career. So the last years of university, at least in engineering, it's 5 to 6 years career to get your bachelor degrees. At some point, you're actually able to choose certain subjects that you're more interested at the end of the career. But usually you have already started working in the industry. So you have an idea on which area is more interested. Is like network engineering, even like ML or AI could be an area. Architecture, like software architect, like you can actually choose your own path. So I started working at Abstracta when I was in my third year of university. They hired me as a junior, of course, to start working in performance, which was more like performance testing, but also some performance engineering, which is more related to DevOps today. At that time, we wouldn't call it. We wouldn't have that as a role. But yeah, they basically, put this ad up at our uni. I got it. I went to an interview. I had just I was back to Uruguay because I was just 1 year abroad living in Ireland, which that's another story as well. But basically, they like me and they hire me.
That's a very interesting model. I think that the US companies, I know, always complain that our universities are sort of behind in terms of what they're teaching. I mean, there's probably universities teaching a DevOps class, but probably not Kubernetes yet. So it seems like that's a real logical way to do that in your third year, because then you're getting a feedback loop directly from the employer back to you, back to the university. I think there's a gap in the US system that we do take that time off. And I think we call them internships, and you might do a summer internship, but actually taking a job, but there's no better way to experience the real world than actually working.
And usually you start like 6 hours part-time, depends, they don't hire you full-time because they know you're still studying, and they want you to actually keep studying as well, because you want to get more raises, right? The more you advance in your career, and once you actually get your bachelor as well. But as you said, there's more, at least how I felt, that there's a close connection between industry and education. So there's a feedback loop as well, and many founders of startups, they actually teach at university there. So they bring that view from what the market needs, where is the industry. Of course, there are some subjects that are like still old, in the sense that they're teaching you things that maybe they're not that relevant. But most of them, it's still the basics of engineering that you need to learn. So things that you might not find, like it happened to me, like this makes no sense. Why am I learning this? But then many years after, you realize that that was useful because it helps you with problem solving, or it helps you with, certain skills that are not specifically related to the technology. But again, I think it's challenging, as I said, because you're working and studying, but it gives you and it prepares you better for the future and for actually knowing, where do you want to specialize in IT in this case, right? Which was, I studied computer engineering.
So I have a offbeat question, I think. Do you speak Spanish or Portuguese?
Spanish and Portuguese.
Oh, really?
Because I'm married with a Brazilian.
Okay.
we speak Spanish in Uruguay, yeah. As in most of Latin America.
But Brazil's Portuguese.
Brazil is Portuguese, yeah.
Yes.
But because they're so big, I can say there's 200 million people that speaks Portuguese that live in Brazil. But yeah, and we have a border with Brazil, so actually a lot of people in Uruguay speaks Portuguese because
that's what I didn't know what the primary language was. So in university and in your first job, how many women did you run into? Is it like the US where we're like maybe 1 or 2%, or are there more women?
It's so at work, I was we were 9 at the time, 9 people in the company, and I was the second woman in that group that I was hired. Then we actually grew a lot, and that proportion we didn't kept that like 2 to 10, it was sometimes more, sometimes less, specifically in the technical side, because as well, then you start hiring like for marketing or, financial, and then more roles come where women are, typically hired for. But it was usually minority. There were some classes at the very last years of university where I was like 1 in 40. That happened even more when you were doing, and we did share that with some, I have friends that they did like mechanical engineering, that was like 1 to 60. So for computer engineering, at least in Uruguay, it's in terms of all the careers you can do under the engineering faculty, is the one that has more women. Actually, it's like around 20% that enter every year, but then it's less that actually get to the end. So it's less that finish. So that percentage at the end and last year was around 13, which is super low.
Yeah, it's really low. It's low. I don't know what it is in the US, but I think it's probably around 10 to 13.
Right.
And I find in the US, retaining women in technology is hard because many go off and have kids. And then if they take 3 years off or 4 years, heaven forbid, many of them tell me they feel that they're not relevant anymore. Our technology changes so quickly. It's like, oh, well, we were doing C when my kid was born, and now I've got to learn Python, or,
Totally.
Such a fast industry, it's hard.
Yeah, and it happens again, when I mentioned that you started working while you're studying, even if you have kids in the middle, which is not uncommon for women, at least in Uruguay, that means you're 35, 40, and maybe you have years of experience, but you haven't finished yet your career because you have kids. So it's super challenging. And I think that's why also part of what I want to do right in my role is also to just be able to show that, of course, not only we're capable, but even if we have to, leave the industry for a while for whatever reason, we should be able to get back on track. And I think that's our responsibility, right? Because it's also up to us to get back, and it's challenging. But I know many women that were able to go back after having kids, or after even having, going through surgery, disease, whatever, that will keep you away from work for a certain period of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in technology, if you're okay with always learning and knowing that you don't know everything, but you have transferable skills that you can pick new things up, that you're okay. But I think that a lot of people feel like, well, I don't know the answers and I'm not sure if I should go back in, and there's some hesitancy. And I see that more with women than men. Men sometimes will just jump back in and say, well, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, there's something I don't know what it's like biologically, but
I
there's
don't know
something
what it
about
is either.
confidence that I just see it happened to me. I'm also part of like not having that confidence that you don't know it now, but you're going to learn it, right? My own experience now is that we with Apptim, we start in performance dimension, we're expanding to security. And when you talk about cyber security, it's like, oh, this whole new world. You know, I still learning and it's not that hard. Right? And I have people in my team that, you know, are experts and I speak the same language right now, something that maybe 3 months ago, I was scared at the beginning because it wasn't my background for the last 10 years. But again, like you learn, but it's that thing that sometimes we put that barrier ourselves, that this is too hard, maybe we are not good enough, you know, all those thoughts that you have in your head.
You know, I think we have imposter syndrome so bad. When I was bugging Jodi to become part of a host on this, she was just like, I don't know if I could do it. I was like, oh, come on, you're so much fun to talk to.
One thing that helps is just, building your own startup. It's like, there's every week, there's something that you have never done before. And that's from, you know, talking to investors, you know, raising money, doing like bookkeeping, you know, firing people, hiring people. There's always something new. And many skills are skills that you haven't learned actually, because it's not something that you that they're taught at university. It's just by doing that you learn. And that's how I gain more confidence. It's like, okay, I did this, now what's next? And then I apply that to different areas. But again, it's something that should come from you. And I think it's just like little steps and little gains help you build that confidence. And of course, talking to other women that have already done it and that they can push you forward.
Absolutely.
What do you have? Do you have a support system of other women that you network with?
Yes, several. I have one like, female I have female founders from the US that I met when I was living in SF. I have female founders from Latin America, which we share some challenges when hiring, for example, from Colombia, Mexico. And I have groups where we have something that we share in terms of like, challenges or problems. So we speak kind of like the same language, even raising from VCs, for example. So I have groups focus on that. I have a support network, of course, of my partners are the companies. I have co-founders. That helps a lot. They're all males, but they are like very like woman, empowerment is what we want. Mostly because they have daughters. So it's about their future as well. And that's a really good way of having support from men in this quest of, women in tech, is because they want to see their daughters in the future to have a possibility and to be motivated to study something related to IT. So that's like, in a way, being a role model for them. So I have that support network that it's amazing.
And I feel like that's a very intrinsically female quality, that we're more likely to seek out peers and groups and bounce stuff off of each other, where I see in jobs that I've had in the past where men tend to just power their way through it and figure out they can do it all by themselves, and not always very successfully. And we've spoken with so many really successful women like you. And one of the things they all have in common, Tracy, is that they've created a support system for themselves where they can bounce all of these things off of other people, because there's just so many startups in this world. I mean, how many people go and work for a company that has 5,000 people anymore, right? Or if they do, it's just long enough to get what they need to go out and start their own or do something smaller. So I just think it's just a really empowering thing to have people around you that can really help you. And you
and of course you have friends, right? We all have friends, but sometimes friends, they don't actually get it. It's just like super hard to explain like what you're going through, because you have, all these investors are saying no, and they're like, but you're so good, or maybe you should do something else. But then you say like, no, but this is normal. So it's like, you have to explain. It's like talking to your mom, right? She's there to support you, but she doesn't get it. She's like,
talking
I'm so proud of you.
Talking to investors can be really, really hard. I know I've
Exactly.
gone through many of them looking for funding. And, women only get 2% of the funding.
And when you share those numbers with people outside these groups, they're like, oh, wow, I had no idea. And when you talk
2%.
to, female founders, like, it's so hard. We know.
It's so hard.
Like, what do you need? Like, let's help each other. So
I have to admit, the whole FTX thing, I think that was the company's name, blew up. I was just like, you know what? It teaches them right. Just because this guy had crazy hair, wore a t-shirt and shorts, and came out of Stanford. Says he was a stereotype, and they were just like, oh, you fit the mold. You look like the potential next, I don't know, Elon Musk or something, which I don't know if we need any more of them. I think more women should.
I don't know if that's a great one to use.
Well, there you go. I mean, there's some, there's some amazing powerhouse women. Speaking of which, it's so sad to see Nancy Pelosi finally leaving. No matter what doesn't matter which side of the spectrum you're on, left or right, everybody, you have to give that. She's a tough lady, and she's been in a male-dominated, occupation for years and years and years, and succeeded. I look up to her, and I admire the work that she's done. And we just need more women who are willing to, I guess, put on the gloves and get out there on the mat. And it's kind of, where we're at right now, and really push for more funding. Tell us a little bit about Apptim.
So Apptim, we started as an idea inside Abstracta. Abstracta, we provide services and consulting for, software testing, DevOps, the whole quality around development. We did have actually some products of our own, but they all were kept internal. We were just using it with customers. And Apptim basically was a product that we built for one customer in the US, that we were analyzing the user experience of their mobile apps, and they really like it. And they actually asked us to just buy a license, but there was no way to buy a license because it was something that we, just hook inside our platform and kind of use it very in an artisanal, handmade way. And that was something that there was, put aside until, and this was like 2015 actually, until beginning of 2019, when I was actually in a coffee shop in Palo Alto, very cliche, meeting with this customer. But this is many years after. I was like, we were friends at that time. And he asked me like, hey, what about this product that he had that I remember? Like, it was so good. I've never seen something like the way, like how easy it was to use, like the way that the results were shown, because basically Apptim, you can just run it automatically and it will scan your app and show you a lot of performance issue, response time, things that developers will look like when the app is slow or is not working on this device or in this network, the experience is not the best. And I told him like, yeah, I know we never did anything with it. It's just there. And he was at the time actually transitioned. He sold his company, it was a startup. He was transitioning to a new role. It's like, if you want to do something with it, call me. And this is a male founder from Silicon Valley, right? And I was like, okay. And then I went back and I kept thinking like, should we do something with it? Like, and I went back to like reviewing with the team, like, were there other customers using the product? Like, and then we were like, yeah, it's just a matter of someone focusing on actually, taking this and do something with it. Like the product, or at the time was the tool is there, and that's how it started. We took the IP, which at the time was owned by Abstracta. We incorporated Apptim as a C Corp in Delaware. I had to convince one of the founders at Abstracta to be my CTO, so I could be the CEO. And we, form a team of 4 engineers, and we made it to actually launch the product in the middle of the pandemic. So it was May 2020.
Wow.
Very good timing. Very good timing in the sense that we were fully remote already, because I was in SF, the team was part in Uruguay, part in Argentina. And also because that the pandemic actually saw like huge growth in mobile. specifically in gaming. A lot of people in their house, playing games basically. And we launched just in time without knowing where that growth in the gaming industry happened. So we got a lot of inbound interest from customers. So we didn't have to do any marketing and sales for the first months. We just got to close deals directly from the product, literally. And then we kept building all the automation part that was in our roadmap, how to integrate Apptim into like a pipeline where you can run it automatically after you have a new build of your app. Now we were expanding to security because we want to do more checks in the pipeline, not only performance and potentially other areas. So, this has been our ride the last 4 years. Very, very lean. We did raise money from angels, but we haven't raised any money since then. And the main reason is because first, we were thinking about raising money this year. We thought we talked with some investors and we realized this is not the right time. We need more growth, but for more growth, also at some point we will need more money. So we are trying to.
It's so hard to know when to pull the trigger. I can tell you from my first company, I'm glad that we never raised money, and we had some offers to buy it, and we turned them down. Because keeping control of if you can manage it and you can keep control of your company, you're better off. To be quite honest.
Well, I learned a lot about raising money and like giving power to investors. Before I thought like, this is what we need to do. This is a way of doing things. I wouldn't suggest that to everyone right now. We're so lucky that our angel investors are the best we could choose. Like they literally let us, made our own decisions, but also support us. For example, now they want to expand to security. They were like, yes, what do you need from us? Even if they want to put more money, we say no, it's not the right time, because again, we're going to get more diluted. So I also didn't want that to happen. Lose control. We got offers. Exactly. We got offers this February this year from investors at a valuation that I wasn't willing to give away part of the company. And we say no. And then we always found ways to just like basically be sustainable, right? Pay the bills, pay the team.
Learn to be
lean.
Yes, so important.
And almost, a year after we decided like, should we fundraise? We're still alive. And unfortunately, I know many companies and startups at our stage, which were like seed stage, that had to shut down because they weren't able to, have high burn rate. They weren't able to raise money in the current environment, and they had, had to make a tough decision. So yeah, it's kind of. I want to keep in control. I want to be in control of what's going to happen. I feel if I bring more people with different interests, then things are going to go sideways. So I'm
yes, I've always, I've never raised money. I've always tried to keep it lean and sustainable, and pivot when you need to. But I have made the attempt to raise money. And I have not met too many female investors. And the ones that I do meet tend to be kind of down on the partnership rung. They're not too high up, and they disappear after they bring me in. So it can be, that can be kind of hard, not to see you're sitting at a table and, you've got a bunch of guys, and quite honestly, it can be really disappointing.
Yeah, I think that's the other part that needs to change for this 2% that we talk about, is actually having more women on the investment side.
Yeah,
because again, the bias, unconscious bias, we all have them. It's not like you have them, we don't. Everyone has unconscious biases. It's just having more diversity on both sides, both founders and investors. I did have that experience of meeting. I didn't meet with many investors. I can say maybe like 30, 40, maybe, 4 max were female investors. All the rest were male.
Yeah.
And as you said, some were more like associates. So it's not, they are actually are not like decision-making roles. Also, something that happened to me is like being given the opportunity to raise money and talking to investors. I always try to find those where I thought I had more things like similarities, like they are going to understand where I come from. So I did my research. I spent a lot of time researching how investors think, who will open the door, of course, asking for introductions, but also maybe, cold emailing some that I thought like they might be interested because of this thing that they are supporting, or some are very clear that they actually want you to cold email them because they want to get like a diverse pipeline. But others, it's just because they're very interested in our space. And it happens that there's a woman in the partnership, so I want to contact her. And that happened to me, and I was very I actually asked for other founders introductions only to their female investors, because that's like, how can I create my pipeline with female investors as well? Otherwise, if the same happens sometimes when you're hiring, right? You have to, at least in my experience, you have to be conscious that I want more women. I want to interview more women for this role as well. So I'm going to go out and find them, not just wait for them to come. Because generally speaking, if out of university it's only 10%, it's obvious that maybe I'm going to get only 10% CVs from women, right? But I have to be, I have to do that extra work. And I'm glad that I did that both when hiring, but also when I was selecting which investors I wanted to speak with. So not only male, also female, not only maybe, Americans, maybe immigrants as well, kind of mixing up my pipeline of investor meetings so I can have that variety. And at the end of the day, that's what I was thinking about in terms of who you bring to your cap table, having diversity.
And there's a lot of awesome men out there who want women to succeed, who are doing their mentorship. They're just harder to find.
Well, one of our lead angel investors, he's like that.
Yeah,
he's amazing in the sense that he's proud to be supporting other women startups. He actually built a lot of companies based on only men, and I think he also wants to change that for the future with future generations. And he's like that. He just loves supporting women, and he's more focused on like, you are so smart. It happens that you're a woman and I want to help you, more than just, oh, because you're a woman, I help you. Because that's also something that happens, right? Like, I don't want to be treated differently. I should have the same skills. I can build businesses. I can build billion-dollar businesses. It just happens that I'm a woman.
exactly. I always say that. I don't want to be treated differently. Treat me the same.
That happened to me with some female investors. It's like, oh, because you're a woman, we have this special thing for you. Right. It's like, I don't want to be treated special. Like, for example, accelerators. I never wanted to go to an accelerator.
I've actually reached out to some of those accelerators, and the problem with them is if I was doing something that was more female oriented, maybe something with selling cookies or makeup, they would relate to it better. And that's the problem. We don't have a lot of women in technology who are VCs. You have to have the combination, right? Because a lot of there's women investors out there, but they're not into technology, so they're not going to invest in technology. They're going to invest in something else. Exactly. I swear, many times I was at like a VC kind of event, and I just decided to try this on for size, and I pitched a company that was a clothing company for women, and everything that we made had pockets, because you can buy things and the guys, they have these really cool pockets inside. And I had a VC asking, oh, I want to see some of your clothes. And it was like, just kidding.
Hey, but the pockets in our clothes is a real problem.
I mean, I will pay for that.
I see.
I'm going to say something that maybe sometimes I use my husband coats just because of the pockets.
I do too. That's why I tested it. And they were like, that's a fabulous idea. I was like, yeah, we could name it Pockets. That's the name of the company. But I swear I could have.
Talking about the holidays, last year I bought matching pandemic pajamas for the whole family, and they were all identical from the same company, but none of the female pajamas had pockets. But the men's pajamas did, and they cost the same amount of money, and they looked identical. And I was like, what the hell?
I don't know
maybe I should.
who decided that design. I'm pretty sure someone made that decision and we should stick to it.
Isn't it sad that as women we can get excited about something as simple as pockets? That just cracks me up.
My lesson was, yes, there are women out there who want to spend money on women, but they're going to spend money on what they get excited about. Yeah. And, when you're in an industry like Sofia and I are, there just aren't a lot of women that get excited about, I'm into S-bombs and supply chain DevOps intelligence, which I get totally turned on. I could talk about it for hours, but
yeah, we are passionate. Yeah, it happened to me when I realized that actually, enterprise SaaS businesses founded by women. There was a VC, very well-known VC in SF, that they wanted to do a dinner with female founders in enterprise SaaS. So they reached out to people they knew, from not only SF but whoever that could fly as well. And we were at the end we were about 20 in that group, which was great. But they told us it was so hard to find you. It's it took us, we thought we wouldn't make it possible because it's again enterprise, selling software to enterprise. It was wider even than us. I would be I'm more on the technical side of enterprise, which is even a niche, because in this case you could have also enterprise payroll solutions or other things.
Exactly.
But us is about the tech that the companies run on, right? It's super it's an area that is not common to have women. I can tell you, I talk with, in that list of investors, I probably talk with all female investors, which are probably few, that actually invest in our space in the whole US. It's not a lot.
Not a lot.
Because again, they have to understand, you have to be, you need to first understand to actually, speak the same language. You need to be interested, you need to be excited, you need to be confident. So usually they will come from being practitioners, operators. I think those were the best investors. They have actually done something, and then they turn into VC. All of the investors we have now, they were actually founders themselves. So that helps a lot because they understand you. They have empathy. They know things are not always gonna go the way you want them to. But yeah, it's super hard to find women in the same space. In our technical space, even harder. And let's away if you're women and also Latinas, you're minority in a minority. I never felt like that was something that was a disadvantage. I know it's this is how things are. How can I use this in my favor in a way? So that's why I got this network of women in Latam, for example. So I can relate, and I can relate to them. They can relate to me. They have investors that have invested in them, so they recommended which ones are the best. So it's just good to have your group of peers that you identify with, because they understand you better. But then again, it's you are competing with everyone else in the world. So why would you treat me differently?
Yeah.
So when you were a young woman or a little girl, where did you decide you were interested in this kind of stuff? I'm always curious because we've talked with people whose parents told them they had to do STEM or they wouldn't pay for their college education, and they never thought it was something they'd want to do. But then when they did it, they enjoyed it. But how did you get? Because I think it's super important for us to think about that with our girls.
Our I agree. Ones. And that's also, I think, because when you look at the numbers, the amount of women that actually choose a career is you decided that many years before. So what happens while you're in high school? Right. What are you talking with your friends? Is it something that you're going to be interested in or not? And just focusing on that population, I think is very important to actually increase the future number of girls in tech. My story is not common in the sense that it's not something that I wanted to do for my whole life. It's not oh, I want to be a computer engineer or even an entrepreneur or a CEO. Never ever occurred to me. that I didn't even know that was a possibility, right? And in my family, they were all like lawyers, doctors, my parents architects, no engineers, no computer engineers. Actually, yes, my engineers, yes, but no computer engineers. So I didn't have that like, oh, you have to do this, or this is a future, or it's like whatever you want to do, you can do it. I was very good with numbers, so my first take was like, I should do economics. This is kind of an area that I'm interested. I want to learn how the economies work and why this happens. But this is more like understanding the world, kind of. That was why I thought economics was the career for me. I actually started university in Uruguay studying economics. I didn't like it after the first semester. This is not for me. This is not what I imagined. But at the same time, I also, and this is part of my life, I did like many things at the same time when I wasn't sure. I also started engineering. So I did like 2 universities. Engineering, the only reason why I did it is because I was able to enter as well when I finished high school. You had like different options, so I can do economics or engineering, but actually started studying mechanical engineering.
Oh wow!
Because again, why not? I didn't like the other ones. That's the truth. I was exposed to computers since I was a child. That's true. Mostly because my brother played a lot and I got access to that, but it wasn't something that I thought like, oh, I could actually work using computers or actually programming. So it wasn't until like the second semester of the first year when I said like, economy is not for me. I'm doing this mechanical engineering thing that I didn't really like it. I already felt that. So I tried programming as one of the subjects that was shared with all the engineerings, and I just fall in love. I was like, oh, I can create things. Just like writing a program, then like running it, compiling and seeing that, oh, it actually does, what I want. And then I can change this. And then that I was amazed.
It was that immediate gratification that got me too. It's funny. I studied econ my first 2 years and mechanical engineering.
Oh, really?
I swear, I wanted to build cars. In fact, I went to Cal Poly Pomona, which is they consider it a technical school, and they have really small classes. And one of my classes, we got to build a car, like a go-kart, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. My mother said, "What are you going to do? Go move to Detroit?" And when I thought about it, I was like, I don't want to move to Detroit. And so I started working on some of the programming for the car. And that's when I was like, oh my goodness, I do something and it's actually on the screen already.
Yeah,
and that's what got me.
It's building things.
But it was
two
immediate.
Things that I learned. It's like building things and just seeing the results and understanding how things work. Then I was like, oh, this is how a computer works. And this is how this works. And like, all the different layers and how do you get a signal when you're connected. So I was amazed by that. But these were the 2 things. It's like building things, something that I was, okay, like this is, and that's when I felt like, okay, this is my career. Like I feel, very comfortable and happy here. But because that first year was super intense, I was doing like 2 different careers and not knowing what to do with my life. Is that then I took that year off. I went to Ireland. But then I came back with even more assurance that I chose the right career, because in Ireland, I met people from Amazon, from Google, like everyone that was in Dublin working for the headquarters of these tech companies. They were like, oh yeah, you should study this. Like, this is, the future. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to finish my degree. But yeah, it wasn't, something that I always felt this is my call. And the same happened.
I just love hearing people's stories of how
the same happened
they
when
got
I
to where they
changed.
are.
Yeah, when I actually, as I told you the story of Apptim, it wasn't like I want to be an entrepreneur. It's like there's this thing here that we built. There's this person that has a lot of influence and can mentor me to launch a startup, and I'm in Silicon Valley. Let's do it. It was like connecting the dots. But it's not something that I was planning every day, and because I wasn't planning it, it also meant that a lot of things I have to learn by just doing them. But that's when you have your support network or your mentors. I believe 100% in mentors. I think that can change lives. both for like support when you're, emotional support for sure, but also like someone that understands what you're going through and can give you, that, feedback that you need, that it's not going to be, again, your mom or sometimes even your coworker or your co-founder when you're like facing the same challenges. So having mentors as well has been a key part of my whole journey of becoming an entrepreneur and just gaining that confidence as a female founder in a space where we are minority.
Confidence is so important, and it's an area I think that a lot of women, we just don't oftentimes have the confidence. I always tell people, or tell my lady friends who are going through similar things, I tell them, go get a black belt. I have a black belt. I went and got a black belt. I do practice what I preach, but it teaches you to get on the mat with guys. And it builds confidence in a way that I can't really put my finger on. I can just say, if confidence is something, to our listeners out there, as a woman that you're struggling or you haven't found your voice yet, it's hard to find your voice often, go get a black belt. It's a really, really good way to do it. Maybe now that the pandemic's over, we can start going to exercise. Well, it's not really over, but it's getting better. Let's hope that we don't have another pandemic coming out of China from, some crazy strain of COVID, but get in the gym with some guys and go to the mat with some guys, and it'll change how you are at work.
That's great, Tracy. I think that's a great place because we are pretty much out of time. We've gone quite a while. Time flies when you're having a great conversation. Sofia, it was so great to meet you. Thank you for being here. Expect to hear from me again soon because I would love to have you on a couple of my other shows that we do here at Tech.Strong. You and I have chatted a little bit and timing hasn't worked out, but would love to see you again. And Tracy, thank you again for another fun episode of Tech.Strong.Women. And we will see you guys back here in a couple of weeks. So thanks a lot and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you both.